From Idaho's News Channel 7, this is Viewpoint.
Welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Doug Petcash. It is crunch time for back to school. Some districts are starting classes on Monday, including the Boise School District, which is starting online. Many others are finalizing their back to school plans along with their local public health districts. All of this is going on as students, parents, teachers, staff, and leaders experience different levels of anxiety about getting back to school or staying at home during the coronavirus pandemic. At his most recent news conference, Governor Brad Little emphasized why he believes it's so important to get Idaho students back into schools. He outlined the $85 million the state is spending in hopes of making school buildings as safe as possible to reopen. $10 million for additional masks, gloves, sanitizer, and plexiglass for schools. $48 million for computers, internet connectivity, and other resources for remote learning. $21 million for COVID-19 testing of teachers and staff and school staff. $3 million to improve testing lab turnaround time and capacity to help get test results for teachers and school staff as quickly as possible. $3 million also to use pharmacies in testing to help quickly get test results for teachers, staff, and families in rural areas. As I mentioned at the news conference, the governor laid out why he believes it's important for students to have in-person learning as much as possible. Here's what he had to say.
School operations will not look the same across the state, based on virus activity and healthcare capacity in specific communities. However, when students are out of the classroom for too long, the achievement gap widens. This gap draws down the progress of all students. This gap is detrimental to economic prosperity and future workforce demands. This gap inhibits an educated populace, which is critical to a successful democratic republic.
And teachers would agree with that, but many still have concerns about returning to class. The Idaho Education Association, which represents teachers across the state, said teachers would strongly prefer to be in the classroom with their students. But in the statement released on August 4th, IEA President Lane McAnally said, as positivity rates of the dangerous COVID-19 virus continue to increase in many communities, the course of action for public schools in those areas is clear. School buildings in communities considered hotspots should remain closed and districts should shift to online instruction. And several are doing that. The IEA cites the CDC in saying hotspots are areas where the percentage of positive tests is above 5%. According to the state, that includes Ada and Canyon counties. Boise, Nampa, and Caldwell schools will start the year with online learning only and reevaluate as they go about the possibility of returning to class and when. Nampa, Caldwell, Valley View, and Kuna all pushed back their start dates a week or so. The West Ada and Middleton school boards also decided to push their start dates back to September 8th and will make decisions soon on their back to school plans. Some districts are planning for blended models of in-person and online. Well, joining me to talk about all of this, the back to school plans, is State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Sherri Ybarra. Superintendent Ybarra, first of all, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So what do you think of the decisions school boards are making for their districts?
I know that they're all working very hard, and all of their decisions, I support the local decision making, and at this point, I know that all decisions need to be based on data. This is a health issue, and we have to make sure that students and teachers and staff are in a safe environment. And as you stated earlier, there are some counties that are in a hot spot, while we're seeing other counties that are not seeing as much community spread. And so I fully support the local decision-making process being based on data and being based on guidance from the CDC. And I know districts are working very hard to take all that into consideration when they're making those tough decisions about reopening and getting kids back to school in person.
What is the Department of Education's role in the back to school planning?
Our role is to make sure that districts have everything that they need to support schools and students to achieve. That's our motto. As you can see behind me, it's on everything we do. And we wholeheartedly believe that. And included in that is PPE, the personal protective equipment for our students and our teachers. And we also provide guidance around any federal stimulus money that's coming from the national level. That's the CARES Act, that's the GEARS money. They all have different laws and rules around that that's flowing out to the districts. And so we're supporting online learning and options as well. We want districts to be able to pivot at a moment's notice. Should they open in person and then see community spread, we want flexible options for parents. And so we are providing training and online options for districts. Nutritious meals have been a priority for us. That's a basic need for kids. And so we have made sure that districts have got information and supplies around providing nutritious meals even when schools were closed. And then my staff has been available 24/7 around the clock to make sure that questions got answered on behalf of the district. So again, we're here to support schools and students to achieve. And we are proud of the districts and the hard work that they have done to make sure they can try to get kids back in person, and also being flexible to provide online opportunities should that not be the case for some districts.
What is your greatest fear about this upcoming school year?
I don't know. I think if there's one good thing that's going to come out of this epidemic, it's the fact that we've had the opportunity to really look at online opportunities for our kids. I want to make sure that kids and staff and students are safe. But at the same time, I know I've been a big, huge supporter of personalized learning. And I think this was a great opportunity to shift to that option for our kids. And I think, again, anything that's come out of this pandemic is personalized learning for kids and options for parents.
Are you hearing from or about a lot of teachers who may not come back because they're afraid of getting sick with the virus, as Idaho has already been facing a teacher shortage?
So I did have the opportunity to participate in the Idaho School Administrators Conference last week, and that was actually one of the things a topic of concern that we brought up. And there are some teachers that are at risk, but districts are doing a good job of checking in with those teachers and being flexible and providing options for them. And again, I think that's why we really wanted that push to be able to go online. Should a district need to pivot, should a teacher need to have that opportunity, we want to keep everyone safe. And so again, districts are doing a great job of addressing those issues and taking care of some of their most vulnerable staff.
Let's take a look at some of the things the state is doing with the $85 million in CARES Act funding, the federal coronavirus relief funding, to try to make reopening schools as safe as possible. And we have a graphic here. First of all, the state is directing $10 million to buy additional masks, gloves, sanitizers, and plexiglass for schools. How are those supplies being distributed, and how's the effort going?
So we have had the pleasure of working with the Office of Emergency Management as well to help get some of that PPE out to districts. I, again, last week had a great opportunity also to be at the Idaho Association of School Administrators Conference. We passed out thermometers and masks there. Again, working with the Office of Emergency Management. General Ritchie there has been great. He helped us get a huge, thousands of gallons, huge donation of hand sanitizer. We have picked some locations around the state in which we've had the opportunity twice to have drop points for hand sanitizer for that. We have plexiglass, gloves, masks, thermometers, all those things available, and we have drop points around the state so that we can get that out to schools and districts. Again, if there's any school or district out there who feels that they are having a shortage of those things, that's what myself and my staff are here for. Contact us and we will connect you with the resource and get you what you need.
Another one of the components of that spending is $21 million for COVID testing of teachers and staff. Will that be done at the schools? How will that be carried out?
There is a group being put together right now to actually kind of take a look at that. But one of the points that they're looking at is the turnaround time for that. You've heard that there are some folks that get their test back in 2 days. There are some folks that get their test back in 12 days. And so one of the priorities of that group that's being put together is making sure that rural districts are getting the opportunity to be tested, as well as the turnaround time for that. And all that is just now being talked about for staff and students. But I'm just super optimistic and very pleased that we now have funding for testing for staff and for students.
So what is the guidance from the Department of Education as to what happens if a teacher or student tests positive or has to quarantine? Will that affect the whole class?
So that is a local decision, and that comes through the planning that we have asked districts, to do. I'm a member of the state board, and one of the things that we have talked about and made sure that there was some guidance around was making sure that districts have a plan in place to address those very issues. We've also given guidance around make sure you are working with your local health central health district around what do you do when a student tests positive or a staff member tests positive. That's part of their plan, that's part of their policies. It's interesting that I just saw a district last week, they're being very flexible and very creative in planning for these sorts of things. And one district has their students in pods. And so should they have a staff member or a student test positive for the virus, then it will only affect that pod, and they will be able to control it within just that section or that pod. And in their terms, there will be no cross pollination. So I thought that was very creative. That's their back to school plan. They've shared that with folks. And that's just one example of the flexibility and the common sense that's being taken into consideration around that very topic.
I wanted to touch on one more aspect of the $85 million as well. That is $48 million for computers and connectivity for students. So how is the effort to get those devices and the connectivity to students going?
Again, I'm very excited that my fellow board members and myself pushed very hard for a learning management system as part of that $48 million. And so what that means for parents out there is it's just one platform, a systematic way of communicating curriculum through online learning. I know one of the concerns from parents is they might have more than one student in a school district. And so maybe at the elementary level, they had one platform. At the junior high, they had another platform. At the high school, they were trying to learn another platform. So this opportunity really mainstreams that and has one systematic way to communicate with parents and students. So that's underway. My department has finished up the work this week. There will be choices out to districts to choose whatever platform it is that they want to use. And then the second part of that $48 million, like you said, is connectivity and devices, because you can have a platform to communicate with parents and students, but they don't have the device or the connectivity to do that, then it's useless. And so we have put together a grant process for which districts apply for whatever it is that they need, the connectivity piece, the device piece. They show the plan in place for moving forward, for going online. And then the committee that's put together approves that grant and gets that pushed out to the districts. And so it's a really streamlined process. It is not pages and pages of documentation and checkpoints. It really is a common sense approach to making sure that students have the online resources that they need should a district have to pivot to online at a moment's notice.
Another topic, liability shield legislation that would protect schools as well as businesses and the government against lawsuits during emergencies such as the coronavirus pandemic will likely be considered during the special legislative session that's coming up. What's your stance on it?
I understand the concern about liability issues, but we're hearing from counsel that that'll be really difficult to prove that someone contracted the coronavirus at school. It's just as difficult to prove that you contracted it from McDonald's or Walmart. It would be the same concept. However, it is a concern. And so I think it's wise to have that conversation moving forward. We have not seen the legislation, so I can't comment on that. That's still something that's being worked out. So as soon as we have more information, I'll be glad to share that with everybody. But I do understand the concern around that.
Well, thank you. We're going to take a short break right now. And when we come back, with all the changes and uncertainty for our schools, it can be a very stressful time for kids. We'll look at what's being done about the social and emotional health of Idaho students.
Western Heating and Air, the experts you can trust.
Get ready for St. Luke's Fit One 2020. Set your own course and go the distance while social distancing during our virtual 5K, 10K, or half marathon September 18th through the 26th. We'll supply the race shirts and the medals. You bring the energy and the enthusiasm. And your steps will carry far beyond the course to build school running tracks for kids. Sign up for just $25 at fit1boise.org. Fit One 2020. Your course, your way.
COVID has created a massive educational challenge in Idaho. When school begins in August, remote learning will be the next normal. But 200,000 Idaho students don't have a computer, and 30,000 are without internet. We need your help to close the divide. Donate a spare laptop, sponsor a student or a classroom near you. Go to idahobe.org/close now. 200,000 Idaho students are depending on you.
Sometimes you want your home to reflect your personal style, but all the time you love receiving perks with your purchases. That's why you need to join RC Willey's Blue Rewards program to get exclusive discounts, free delivery, and money back on your purchases.
Severe thunderstorms during the summertime can pack strong wind, damaging hail, and also frequent lightning. We're your first alert. Download the KTVB app, tap Settings, then Notification Settings, then Severe Weather Alerts. Turn on Here and Here. Now you're ready for severe weather alerts wherever you are. From the First Alert Weather Team, stay safe this summer. Download the KTVB app in your app store.
Idaho's first choice for local news, now more than ever.
Western Heating and Air, the experts you can trust.
And welcome back to Viewpoint. Today we're focusing on back-to-school plans and challenges during the coronavirus pandemic. My guest today is Idaho Superintendent of Public Instruction, Sherri Ybarra. And before we talk about the social and emotional health of Idaho students, I want to talk with you a little bit about the financial health of our schools. The governor ordered a 5% budget cut across the board for all state departments, as you well know, of course, including education. That's about $100 million for public schools. How are they absorbing these cuts?
I think one of the things that we did with the budget cut to education is involve those boots on the ground folks. I'm never supportive of a cut to education. As the superintendent of public instruction, I'm always going to want more money for education, but this has been hard on the economy, and education was not immune to that. So again, I think one of the things that we did that was the right approach was get some boots on the ground folks, grassroots folks who these budget cuts would affect the most. We got them at the table to talk about, if we have to do this, what would have the least impact on kids. And so moving forward, we came up with something that we felt like everybody could live with. Will say that as I talk nationally with other state superintendents across the nation, and I hear their budget cuts, although ours was not pleasant, it was not near as deep as what I'm hearing other states enduring. So with that, again, it wasn't an easy time, and I am hopeful and optimistic around the federal stimulus funds that have been sent to our state, but involving those folks that the budget cuts affect the most was the right step to take.
So in that regard right there, can some of the federal coronavirus relief funding be used to fill that gap, or does it have to be for coronavirus related expenses, or are there different categories of that funding?
There's different categories, so it depends on which category you're speaking about. So as I mentioned earlier, there's the CARES Act Relief Fund, and then there's the GEARS Fund, and we're looking at moving forward. There's conversations possibly around something called the HEALS Act, which is still being negotiated, but each one of those pots of money has its own rules and laws around it, regulations and expectations. But it has been a help to education. The newest round that's possibly coming through the HEALS Act is supposed to have more flexibility and will be helpful again for education. But I think one of the challenges that we have had with some of that federal stimulus money is trying to remember all the different rules around the different pots of money. Although helpful, we certainly wouldn't want to slap a gift horse in the face, but I think that's been one of the drawbacks, is trying to remember all the rules and laws around the different pots that Idaho has received.
Well, there really is a lot to think about, isn't there? Well, social and emotional health of students is always important, but especially this year. What's being done to help kids who may struggle mentally and emotionally with the added stress that this year presents?
I've been really proud of teachers across the state of Idaho and the way that they have been concerned about the social emotional well-being of their students. I had the opportunity to join an online class group at the high school level with the Teacher of the Year, in which she was actually talking to them about what do you have to be thankful for, really tapping into students' social and emotional well-being during this time. I have seen teachers do sort of something called a ding dong ditch for their seniors, where they have rang the doorbell and left a care package on the steps. So there has been a lot of wonderful, heartwarming things that teachers have done, even though schools are closed, for their kids. The other thing is, I want folks to know out there that some of the efforts that the State Department of Education provides, like especially around suicide prevention, hasn't stopped. And we have continued to prioritize that and offer online opportunities for education around that. And because although a statistic we're not proud of, Idaho does rank about 5th of the nation for suicide. So we know social emotional well-being of our students needs to remain a priority. The safety of our students has been a priority since I took office, especially as a mother of a former public school student and now a university student in Idaho. That never leaves my mind. And so I was also proud of my fellow state board members when we did set aside not only the money for the learning management system and made that a priority for the state of Idaho, but also set aside $1 million to address the social emotional health of our students throughout the state of Idaho.
So what is the Sources of Strength program, and how does it aim to help prevent suicide? I know that you just gave out about 21 more grants to different schools to keep that going.
So it's a type of a mentoring opportunity for kids across the state, Sources of Strength, where they have an adult who is in charge maybe of their region, and students mentor one another around maybe suicide ideology, suicide thoughts. And it has been very positive for students who participate in that program. Again, you mentioned we did give out grants to expand that to different districts and schools around the state. We wanted to take that down to younger students so that they can participate in those programs if necessary.
And we just have about a minute left. I wanted to get your thoughts on high school sports. Should they be played this fall?
You know, my son, who was a public school student, was a baseball player, and I know how important that is to families and parents around the state. But I, unfortunately, do not have any authority over high school sports. But I will tell you that the High School Athletic Association has been working with districts on plans to align guidance and a reopening framework, just like schools are. And I know that there are some districts who are going to have sports and some districts who cannot at this time. And I saw a preview of that at that conference that I participated in this week. And we all want students to return to sports, especially me, safely, but the safety of students is our #1 priority. And if you're at a hot spot, that's probably not going to happen according to the plan. But if you're in an area where there's green or yellow light from the CDC, then they have plans in place to social distance and try to get sports started in their area. So ultimately, again, it needs to be a data-informed approach to those decisions and common sense to keep the players, the coaches, and the community safe, and students first and foremost.
Superintendent Ybarra, thank you so much for your time today. I do appreciate it. Would love to check in with you again as the school year goes on.
My pleasure, and any time, Doug.
Have a great day.
You too.
Still ahead on Viewpoint, gone in a matter of seconds. The iconic Old Smoothie came crashing down.
COVID has created a massive educational challenge in Idaho. When school begins in August, remote learning will be the next normal. But 200,000 Idaho students don't have a computer, and 30,000 are without internet. We need your help to close the divide. Donate a spare laptop, sponsor a student or a classroom near you. Go to idahobe.org/close now. 200,000 Idaho students are depending on you.
We love our new home. There's so much space.
We have a guest room now.
But we have ants.
You're slouching again, Ted.
Expired. Expired. Expired.
Thanks, Aunt Bonnie.
It's a lot of house. I hope you can keep it clean.
At least Geico makes bundling our home and car insurance easy.
Which helps us save a lot of money.
Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request?
I'll have to check.
Aunt Joni's here.
For bundling made easy, go to geico.com.
A smile has the power to get you feeling all right. At Aspen Dental, we're making every day a little brighter with our Smile Wide, Smile Safe promise. We've got you covered in every way, giving deep cleaning a whole new meaning. And now, during our Brighter Smiles, Brighter Days event, put zero money down with zero worries. Plus, enjoy zero interest if paid in full within 18 months. At Aspen Dental, we're making it all right to feel safe and get smiling. We promise. Call 1-800-ASPEN-DENTAL.
Flash floods can roar through creeks and low-lying areas with little warning. Being prepared is key. We're your first alert. Download the KTVB app. Tap Settings, then Notification Settings, then Severe Weather Alerts. Turn on Here and Here. Now you're ready for severe weather alerts wherever you are from the First Alert Weather Team. Stay safe this summer. Download the KTVB app in your app store.
An iconic landmark in the Idaho rock climbing community is no more. The Barron Spire, or Old Smoothie, came down a couple Fridays ago after a 4.2 magnitude aftershock just outside of Stanley. It was one of the many aftershocks from the earthquake back in March. Now, the woman who shot this video says the rocks narrowly missed a group of campers who were below it. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but that icon is no more. That's all of our time for this week's Viewpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Doug Petcash. I hope you have a great week. See you next time on Viewpoint.